Okay, hi everybody. I'm David Wildstein. I'm the editor of the New Jersey Globe. We are here to talk about the return of George Gilmore, a huge comeback winner in a race for Ocean County Republican chairman. I'm being joined by two people who know Ocean County very well. Shlomo Schorr is a political reporter for the Lakewood Shopper. Micah Rasmussen, who lives not far from Ocean County,
Right over the line.
is the director of the Rebovich Institute for New Jersey Politics at Rider University. And we don't do these live stream events that often. We do them when something important is happening. And we all thought, all three of us, that George Gilmore's return was a potentially seismic shift in New Jersey politics. It wasn't completely expected. It wasn't completely unexpected, but his comeback, given what he has dealt with in his life over the last few years, makes this fairly remarkable. And I'll start out by saying, I think Bob Torricelli was wrong that we are a forgiving people, and I could say, I can relate to what George Gilmore has gone through over the last few years. I know what it's like to be sort of left on the dead on the side of the road and be completely written off. I'm going to say this with tremendous hubris, for which people will criticize me for, but I don't think I would have had any chance to come back and have this opportunity to be involved in commenting on New Jersey politics if the New Jersey Globe didn't put out a good product. And I don't think George Gilmore would have had a chance to come back. He's a convicted felon. He's got two felonies that still stand. He was pardoned by Donald Trump on his final day in office, but he was a powerhouse in New Jersey politics for a generation. He was the chairman in Ocean County for 23 years until he resigned after his conviction. And I think had he not been a good chairman, had he not really been good at what he did, he would not have had a second chance. Micah, do you agree with that?
Well, I do. I agree with everything you said. I do think that there are some important differences, and I know that we're not here to talk about George Gilmore's convictions, but there are some important differences that are worth pointing out. And probably one of the reasons why we call this such a stunning event is because, those convictions didn't go away. They weren't set aside by a court, right? He was pardoned for them, but they weren't set aside. There was, you guys maybe can tell this better than I, but there's no element of contrition as there was with you, right? So this stuff didn't go away, and it's stuff that I think will continue to dog him. And I say that with a hair's breadth because we are talking about a one-party county. We can't forget that. We're talking about an environment in which there's been a decline in local news, notwithstanding the great hyper-local job that Shlomo does. People don't follow this stuff as they used to. And so it's not like George Gilmore is going to have these questions following him around. But let's face it, the guy owes $5 million. He's got to pay back. How is a powerful county chair going to do that? And so I think that we are going to continue to be watching and talking and seeing what happens here. It's a big deal to have a felon running a county organization, one of the strongest county organizations in the state.
And to your point, Micah, if I could just interject, I think when I spoke to a lot of the county chairs, a lot of the voting members, longtime allies of Gilmore, but and I asked them why would you support my minority? That was the reason they told me. In fact, precisely that. They have no issues with Gilmore. They are friends with him. They kind of want to see him come back in the future, but they just see a party chair who's committed to the party cannot have the financial obligations that he's going to have now, the millions of dollars that he's going to owe. He has a lot of legal troubles that he still has to sort out that's still hanging over his head. And they want someone who could run the party without those distractions, without attending to other matters on the side.
And the thing is, though, he won by 13 votes, but it's that old story. You know what you call a county chairman who wins by one vote. You call him the county chairman. So he's there, and right now he's in control. And I look at this, and I look a little bit further south. For those who think Ocean County is South Jersey, further south, and I look at George Norcross, and for 30 years, Democrats and Republicans have thought that he would be a campaign issue as a political boss. And guess what? Voters don't know who he is, and they don't care, and it's all inside stuff. So
yeah, I want to be clear. I don't think this is going to hinder his ability or the county organization's ability to win races. I absolutely think he's back. He's on top. As you said, it doesn't even matter so much how we got here. But I think we'd probably be remiss if we didn't talk about the fact that this is still going to be something that's attached to him, and it's going to be weighing on him every day.
And Ocean, go ahead, Shlomo, please.
No, sorry. I just say on the flip side, so also like what Mike is saying, many who did vote for him were okay. They see him. He's the fighter we always had, the fighter we want, the one who could take the party even further, the one who can move the party, further to the right, as some prefer, or even in other directions, more of a national. He told me this himself. He wants to take the party to the more national prominent factor that used to be. He wants to see it the strong party of the country, not just the state. And that's many of the people who voted for him saw that in him and continue to see that in him as well.
Yeah, I mean, this is just like every other election. He won with 51% of the vote. That was last Thursday. Incrementally every day that margin grows. More and more people are saying, remember I said county committee live, but people want to be with a winner. So now that he's won and is trying to unite this party a little bit, this was a nasty race. There's no doubt about it. It was a nasty race. But I'll tell you, one factoid that I was amazed by is 91% of the seats in Ocean County are filled, the Republican county committee seats, and they had turnout of over 90% last Thursday. So it's hard to say, well, if this crew came out or these people were on vacation, it was close, but this got all put together through a lot of hard work. Shlomo, tell me, I mean, I really want to talk about the future, but tell me how George Gilmore won this.
Literally that. I asked him that exact question this afternoon. I asked him, how did you win this? I mean, most political pundits, including myself, did not expect you to come out. I didn't expect to be close, though. Some people were telling me in the last week that they would be shocked if it was close, but no one told me he was going to pull it out and win. So I asked him that directly. How did you do it? So he said that people voted for me, but I asked him, okay, but what did you do? He told me that what he did different this time was he personally was calling up member for the last few months, even before he announced, and spoke to them heart to heart. His words, spoke to them directly, not through a surrogate, not through somebody else, not through an ally, not through a consultant, just made the phone call after phone call after phone call. And he said he believes that's what the factor, he described himself as tenacious, the word he used, says that's what I do. That's how I work. This is local politics. You have to know everybody. And when someone's talking to me, and when someone's talking to my opponent or my opponent's surrogate, I can make a lot of progress in there. If someone wasn't going to vote for me, but now I speak to me directly, they will.
And Mastronardi, fairly popular in Ocean County, right?
Extremely popular.
I mean, so I was thinking about who could have run for county chairman that could have beat George Gilmore, and I came up with a list of two. One was Mastronardi, the other was Senator Chris Connors. But I'm told that, I mean, Connors was all in for Mastronardi. I'm told that both sides seem to think that Mastronardi got 100% of the vote or close to 100% of the vote on LBI, which is the Connors base. So maybe there wasn't a lot more. I mean, that one could have done over the other. One of the things I see with Gilmore is he also made his own luck here. He got this the old-fashioned way. He ran off-the-line candidates for county committee in Toms River, and and won, I think, 33 of the 50 contested races that he was playing for. Shlomo is
Huge factor for sure.
yeah. That's, sometimes you have to take these elections to the voters. And to a point, I think he did.
Absolutely. Both the voters being the county committee seats and the voters being the people who were going to elect the county committee seats. Yeah. I think it was a very well organized process, and he knew all the steps involved, and they worked every step involved, and they took nothing for granted. I think you also have to say, when you talk about Southern Ocean, you have to start talking about the renegades or the anti-establishment Republicans that he brought into the fold. And he was pretty effective at bringing into the fold the Mike Crispies and the Trump folks. And this is a hardcore Republican county, but there are establishment Republicans and there are anti-establishment Republicans. And he brought those folks into the fold. Those folks are excited. People like Mike Crispy are excited, and rightfully so. They can claim to be a part of this win. George Gilmore needed them. He counted on them. And when you win by this many votes, this handful of votes, every bit of help mattered, and they can claim part of that win. But they're now going to be looking for payback. And we've talked about that this week a lot, David, how George Gilmore is not an ideological guy. He brought ideologues into the process, but he himself just wants to win and wants to prove something. He wants to just continue to steamroll in the county.
And I asked him that this afternoon also, kind of in an offhand way, if he's happy with the incumbents on every level that we have in the county here in Ocean County, federal, state, local. I was kind of trying to gauge his reaction there, and he gave me a non-answer, but he said, listen, I'm always trying for better candidates. I'm always trying to put in a candidate that I feel is better. So he was definitely not ruling out primaries. I didn't ask him about primaries directly, but that was my point. I think he understood. And he was kind of saying, no, we're going to put in candidates who we think is the best, regardless of who the incumbent is right now.
And one of the things before we talk about what comes next, something that can't go unmentioned is George Gilmore a few years back made a decision to expand his relationship with Bill Stepien, who like George was, like I was at the time, sort of on that side of the road. And George Gilmore in 2014, after Chris Christie cut his ties with Bill Stepien, George Gilmore got him a job and got him a contract at GOPAC, a national political action committee that he was involved in. That turned out to be, forget his career, perhaps a crucial decision in his life. Because he didn't know at the time that Bill Stepien would wind up as the White House political director and as President Trump's campaign manager. While we all say this, none of us know for sure, but I would be, I'd bet some money on the fact that Bill played the dominant role in getting a pardon for George Gilmore, and so with George Gilmore's reemergence on the political scene, I think you're going to see a continued role for Bill Stepien, who's never left New Jersey, who was the strategist on Jeff Van Drew's party switch and that includes part of Ocean County, and is playing at a national level. So,
I think what Shlomo said a minute ago about George saying that he wants to take this national, I think that's a lot of what he's talking about is working with Bill and let's take this to the next level kind of a thing. Yeah, I do. I think that's what he's saying there.
Absolutely. And just further on that point, I was just half expecting Trump to release a statement congratulating him almost. I wouldn't be surprised that what it means, for Bill Stepien, obviously, and his crucial role he played here. But yeah, to David's point, no way George could have foreseen Bill Stepien stepping in and playing such a large role in his life. And you see sometimes the result of your actions years later.
Pretty clear that Chris Christie isn't getting the organization line in Ocean County. So let's talk about what happens next. And first of all, next this was last Thursday. It's Monday now, so we're in next. And where I think George Gilmore stands in terms of that organization is everybody endorsed Michael Mastronardi, including 5 county commissioners. But I don't know that that's a real number. I think there were 2 of them. Specifically Jack Kelly and Joe Vicari that I think were probably for Gilmore all along. They've been longtime friends and allies and never stopped being with him. So Gilmore right now, I think, and I'll see, Shlomo, if you agree with me, and it's okay if you don't, but I think he entered this race with a 3, with 2 of the 5 county commissioners. And I think his next goal is he's just got to flip one of the other 3. And here he is, a county chairman in control of his own county government.
I agree with that, and I couldn't confirm precisely that how many county chairmen were supporting him. The commissioners were supporting him, but one thing that people told me on the lower level, just voting members, were that they kind of okay with him winning. They even would have voted for him, but they were doing Mastronardi a favor. And once Gilmore won, they're just fine with that. So the margin of victory, the 13 votes, it's really a lot bigger than that. It's more people who are okay. Mastronardi didn't win. We're okay with Gilmore. We're fine with him. It wasn't like, oh, it's one over the other. Mastronardi came in first. We committed to him, or they were getting also a lot of voters are getting direction from Joe Buccalo, who was also putting forward Mastronardi, who's obviously a big influence in the party. That doesn't have to be stated. So they're okay right now. So I think his margin is actually a lot larger than it looks just on paper.
Yeah, I don't even know whether I would describe the Ocean County GOP as split right now. I think you will definitely see some incumbents who may not be satisfied with not getting a line, who may choose to challenge that, who may fight for their survival. But I don't know that you can say, I think, look, David, you and I have talked about this all week. This is a machine, and the machine has replaced its chair, and they are going to fall in line, which is what they do. And, we'll see what happens, and we'll talk about the future. But I don't know that you can say that there's a split down the middle or a fissure in this party at this point.
Shlomo,
sure,
is
on
it
the lower level? Sure not.
Yeah.
The upper level, yes, but not the lower level.
Right.
So Shlomo, is the idea that Carl Block's going to stay as the county administrator, and I'm getting hyper local and former Stafford mayor, a fixture in politics for decades in his own right, but he's a Gilmore guy. He's going to keep running that county. That thought that he might be pushed out, that's over, isn't it?
I believe so, and it's more and just on that point. Gilmore was extremely involved the last couple of years. It's not like he kind of stepped away. I mean, his candidates were running like they're still around. He's been playing this game the last 2 years, not as vocal or as public as he was, prior, but he's been involved. He hasn't taken a leave of absence, really.
Yeah, it's an important point. And so let's talk about. I mean, I'll start with 2 places where I think he probably will focus on. Probably needs to focus on in order to, amass the influence that he had when he left. One is local politics in Toms River, and the other is the legislative delegation. In Toms River, he backed a losing candidate in 2019 for mayor, and Mo Hill ran off the line. Won by close to 600 votes. Hill is up next year, and the other important thing, and I mean this is so complicated. It's complicated for all of us, but to people who don't know Ocean County, the organization line is not awarded by the county committee. It's awarded by what's called the county council. And that is a convention where it's not the county committee that has the votes; it's the clubs, and the most important thing that I thought happened over the last couple of years. It's the reason I frankly didn't didn't think Gilmore could come back is George Gilmore controlled the Toms River Republican Club, which was the largest block of votes in this county council, and Frank Holman and a group in Mo Hill and a group in Toms River went through the process, this bylaw process of decertifying that club and having the party certify the new club. So Shlomo, does Gilmore have to go back and decertify the new club and recertify the original one, or can he just take the other one over? Will people just let him back in?
That's a good question. I think he will likely come in here again. He already has councilmen, Don Roderick, Justin Lamb, already his allies who are in there. He does have many allies in Toms River currently. I think it would be easier just come in and take it over. There's going to be a fight most likely. I'd anticipate, you mentioned Mo Hill coming up re-election next year. Wonder how that's going to play out. But I think it will definitely be easier for him to try to come in, and I don't think he faces much opposition. Maybe a little bit, but I think eventually he does take it over one way or the other.
So yeah, I would agree with that, and I would not assume this is again where I stress that Gilmore is not the ideologue that a lot of his supporters are. I would not assume that Mo Hill gets dumped. I would more look. None of us have a crystal ball. That's what we're trying to do here. But I would look for grand bargains, right? I would look for the kind of thing where you want to stay. Who else goes, right? Which legislators get dumped, that kind of thing. I think that's more of the way this will go, because I don't think that he's wholesale going to pick. It just wouldn't be a tactician's strategy to go in and just replace everybody. I think it's going to be where he sees his moments and his opportunities. That's where he's going to go in. He's not going to pick fights with everybody.
So does he have to throw a body on the tarmac? Does somebody have to go? Or can he get away with going to the people who helped him win this election and say, in 2023, we're just going to stick with the status quo for
I think you're right. If somebody's got to go, and like I said, that's even where you go to your supporters and you say, this is where we're starting, right? This is where we're going first. Not promise what's next, but I think you have to start to act on the majority. You have to start to use the new majority that you've got, the power that you've got. There's been sort of an implicit bargain there, right? They're looking to shake things up, to change the dynamic. Mm-hmm. I think you have to deliver on that somewhat. It's not going to be everybody, but it's going to be somebody. Yeah.
Shlomo, do you agree with that?
I think so. Yeah, I think Micah nailed it. There's going to be some, sacrificial lambs. There's going to be some people who are going to have to go. But I think the party is hoping, and the people that I've spoken to, that they move on past this, that they bygones be bygones. This has probably come from more minority people, and they just say, let's move on for the sake of the party. Let's put this behind us. It was a negative campaign. Some say it wasn't. But let's just move on.
Yeah, I mean, so let's talk about what happens and who's at risk. Start in District 10, which is the Toms River Brick District. I think there's been, and I should say too, one of the things that George Gilmore told me before the election is that he didn't have plans to purge everybody out, but that as vacancies come up, he would certainly consider changes. I think what that meant, and if Chairman Gilmore is listening, then he'll let us all know that we got it right or got it wrong, or won't say anything. But I think one of the things that means is Senator Holzapfel, not a young man, and by the way, nobody in Ocean County. That's part of the problem, right? I mean, nobody's terribly young there, and that's part of the issue, But Senator Holzapfel's in his late 70s. He has indicated, he hasn't said anything publicly, but he has indicated to friends in his caucus, friends who have now repeated it, that this is his last term, that he's not going to run again. So Gilmore's potentially got that 10th District Senate seat. I would imagine that Assemblyman Greg McGuckin wants that Senate seat, that he was expecting it under Chairman Mastronardi. I don't think that Assemblyman McGuckin has a chance to be Gilmore's candidate for the Senate, but the question will be, or Shlomo, I'll start with you. Or are we looking at a primary in 2023? It's the perfect storm of an off year election to run off the line because the state Senate and the Assembly had the ticket.
I would agree with that. I think it's the, like you said, the perfect storm. There are still going to be many supporters on either side, and he has, and both, the Assemblyman has many of his own supporters here, and I think he would, try to mount a primary challenge if he's going against another candidate, or vice versa. I think we could see a pretty very big primary there. Again, assuming the senator is stepping down anytime soon, unless they are assessing Republicans' chances in the legislature next year is looking a little better, then maybe they want to hang on a little bit.
And you've also got John Catalano, second-term Assemblyman from Brick, and Catalano was for Mastronardi, and his hometown went for Jim Gilmore. Through it may be that he is also among the potential bodies on the tarmac as the Brick Republicans who backed George Gilmore might look at that. Let me mention to you, Shlomo, some of the names that I've heard. These are just short lists. They're not coming from George Gilmore. They're just names that are out there. But I have heard as a potential Senate candidate, Kathy Lindenbaum, the Brick Republican municipal chair, former school board member, former state PTA president, as a possible Senate candidate or as an Assembly candidate. I've heard Jerry Ambrosio from Tom's River. And she has remained loyal to George Gilmore throughout. She was, one of the leaders of the club that got knocked out. She ran off the line against McGuckin and Catalano in the last election and got beat. But I've heard her. I've heard former Councilwoman Ruth Ann Scaturo. You have the Lambs, Councilman Justin Lamb and his wife, school board member Ashley Lamb, who ran for county commissioner. I don't know where Dan Roderick falls into that, but am I on the right track, Shlomo? Or are these?
I think so. I'm hearing a lot of these names as well. These are a lot of, like I said, attractive candidates for many in the party locally, who many would like to see on, top a ticket in some years in the not so distant future. I didn't hear all those names personally myself, but I've heard some of them as being potential candidates.
And David, what I think how this plays out, you guys tell me if you think otherwise. I think all these people potentially screen for the party support, but I don't think that necessarily means that anybody takes on the party if they don't get the line. I think you're going to have to really decide you're going to take on the new chair and his new power. And that's really the point.
Yeah. But go ahead, Shlomo.
No, I was going to say on that will probably vary by municipality. Like you were mentioning, Brick, a strong Gilmore municipal base, same for Manchester. But then you have Jackson and Lakewood, for example, which were strongly in terms of, in terms of nationality. Mm-hmm. But again, those lower levels, I was saying before, they're okay with, not just okay, but just fine, and would support Gilmore, in the future. So I don't know if we see epic fights in those places, but some municipalities may be open to that.
One of the problems in New Jersey politics is candidates are deathly afraid of this thing called an election, and everybody likes it to be lined up for them, all set up. They get the line, they move through. There's no primary. The general's not contested, and the next thing you know, you're nearly 80 years old. You've spent a lot of your life in the New Jersey legislature, and you've never actually had to fight for the office.
You've described Ocean County.
Yeah, I mean it's so the question is, does somebody like Greg McGuckin I mean, he's got three options. One is to get dumped. One is to run for the Senate and take his case to the voters, and talk about what he's done in the assembly and what is, and what his vision is, and ask for their votes. And the third, and I'm told not to expect this. Everybody's saying this isn't even an option. It's going to be A or B. It's not going to be C. And C is that George Gilmore goes to McGuckin and says, stay in the assembly. But I need you to run on the line with my Senate candidate and with my candidate for mayor and with my candidate for county commissioner. And I know McGuckin and Mo Hill are extraordinarily close, but that, I think that's a possible issue too.
I do too, and that's sort of where I'm going is in my head is you don't take everybody out at once. You take out strategically. You say, look, we're doing this one at a time, and everybody else is okay. And for the time being, anyway. And that's how you keep the peace. That's how you build the party back up. That's how you consolidate your power. And so I think more of those kinds of agreements will take. I don't think you're going to see wholesale new legislative ticket, new free commissioner ticket all at once. I just don't. I think it's going to be more like you're saying. You run with my guy and you'll be fine.
Shlomo, does Joe Vicari, who first won a race for countywide office in 1984, and I probably shouldn't ask this, it's a personal question, but how old were you in 1984, Shlomo?
I wasn't around.
Yeah. so
for another decade.
I mean, Joe Vicari has been a freeholder county commissioner for much more than you've been alive.
Like most of them. I mean, you take Gary Quinn, and he's the youngest at high 60s, I think.
So is Joe Vicari, does Gilmore look at Joe Vicari and say, what, maybe it's time that he retires, maybe it's not, but he is a known entity. And if there's going to be a primary, the organization's going to want him as their candidate and not some county commissioner candidate that nobody knows. Is that a reasonable guess?
I think so. It's an interesting scenario. Again, Vicari has his guys. He has his opponents, obviously, throughout the county. Where he ends up would be very interesting. Or does, with Gilmore back in power now, does he, stay where he is, stay settled in his current position?
Convictions notwithstanding, this is not Hudson County, but there are some things in common, right? And when you are a mayor, or when you are someone who brings a town to the table, as Vicari does, as a former mayor, that's something that's got to be considered when you bring part of the county to the table. And he does have a following in his part of the county, and so I don't think that would be easily dismissed.
So let me ask you, Shlomo, I'll start with you. District 9. This is LBI and South Ocean. I mean, Chris Connors, like I said earlier, was all in for Mastronardi, but Gilmore never really had Chris Connors, and he never had Chris Connors' predecessor, Senator Len Connors. They were, they always sort of did, the Connors always did their own thing. I mean, my assumption is Gilmore can't move Connors out of the Senate until Connors is ready to go.
I would have to agree with that. I mean, he's embedded. He's he has his own bedrock of support. He's an icon almost, in Brick and the surrounding areas, the whole district. Very hard to imagine that they can get someone to dislodge him.
His dad was
ready to go.
Yeah, I mean, his dad was in the Senate from 81 till 2007. Chris Connors was in the Assembly for a while, then moved to his dad's Senate seat. Len Connors, who was just a giant, was I think he was mayor of Surf City from 1966 until until he died about 8 years ago. I mean,
right.
Say I knew that.
Yeah, I mean, you're talking about real names.
The father and the son served together for a long time.
Yeah. So you've had Connors is on the ballot. You talk about Shlomo. Before your life, I was 5 years old when Len Connors first started running for office. So and this is I've been doing this a long time. So So they, I don't think they can take Len Connors, but I think the two assembly members, Brian Rumpf and Diane Gove, I think it is fair to question their political futures and wonder if maybe at least one of them gets taken out. George Gilmore didn't get elected in order to make no changes at all.
Right.
I'll tell you some of the names that I hear, for Senate or Assembly down the road there. I hear about Carmen Amato, the mayor of Berkeley, who has been loyal to George Gilmore for 20 years, 20 of his 23 years when he was county chairman the first time, and for every minute of his time out of office, played a major role. I hear about Ray Gormley from Little Lake Harbor Township. He's been on the township committee for, I think, 26 years. He's been mayor a bunch of times. John Novak, former mayor of Barnegat, who was for Gilmore in this race. I've heard about a rare younger person being mentioned, which is Roxy Koberger, the Republican municipal chair of Manchester, former political director of the Republican State Committee under Doug Steinhardt and under Mike Lavery, who is George Gilmore's nephew. Shlomo, are these? Am I in the ballpark on any of these? Do you think at least one of the assembly members ought to be watching their backs right now?
You mentioned a lot more names than I would have been able to, but I think some of them for sure. I mean, some of these names are not like the Connors that you were mentioning before. Relatively newer, relatively. So you could see perhaps at least one, maybe the potential to go down somewhere along the line, in the not so distant future.
So Micah
probably knows more.
Micah, we're just guessing. We're just guessing here. Does he District 9? Does he take one out? Does he take two out? Or zero?
I think you could take two out there. I mean, you could definitely, if you wanted to, you could say. I mean, Rumpf has so this is where Connors and Rumpf, and you guys correct me if I'm wrong. They're in the same law firm, right? They practice in the same law firm. Is that right? I believe they do.
So
I don't think Rumpf is an attorney, but
no.
But okay. I think Connors and Holzapfel.
There you go. All right.
Yeah.
Right.
My point is that some of these legislators are pretty well entrenched in the business of the county, right? In the business of the party, in the business of the county. And remember what we said about Gilmore needing to monetize this chairmanship, right? Or it being a possibility that's something that would happen.
And by the way, in all fairness, Micah, legally monetize the chairmanship, just like the other 41 do.
Absolutely, it's just it would not correct because it is the practice in so many other places, and because he needs to come up with repaying some debts. It would not be a surprise to anyone if that's what the kind of stuff that would start to happen. So the more you talk about people who are entrenched in the business of the county and the business of the party, that's where I think it gets harder to dismantle. Diane Gove, she's had a good run. She's been around for a while. Easy to say to her, not easy to say to anybody. You've had your time. We're bringing some new blood and we're making a change. That's one where you can see that happening. Rumpf, I don't know. I mean, it definitely seems like he can do what he wants, but you start with one, maybe. You start with one.
And District 12, this is that weird district that goes from Old Bridge to Ocean and Burlington County. Ron Dancer, I hope he's doing better, but he's faced some health issues. God willing, he's an active legislator and has never stopped, even while dealing with some health issues. But there's some talk that maybe he doesn't run again. So right. Shlomo, that becomes an interesting issue because that's an Ocean seat, but it's mostly Jackson, and Jackson was for Mastronardi. So what what would George Gilmore do? What would your guess be
Yeah,
to
I was
handle
waiting
that?
for you to bring him up, and he needs a lot of prayers. Almost really remains to be seen, if he decides to step down to address his health issues with. But he's going strong, no question about it, despite what he's going through as a legislator. Yeah, you're right. Jackson was strong for Mashtonardi. They delivered, but again, like I said before, speaking to people on the ground who voted in Jackson, many of them are just fine with Gilmore and have, as long as he's putting up the right candidates and not necessarily taking out people. I don't know if they're going to support him when it comes to a primary, when he wants his guy in there or someone else, but they're happy to support him, when it comes to other, less controversial positions. I think they're fine with that.
And Shlomo, your home base, Lakewood, District 30, seems to me that Senator Bob Singer has navigated the party wars very deftly. I don't think
He's been
very
here a
deftly.
long time. He's
It's
very
not
good at that. Yeah, he gets along with everybody. He's been here a long time. Obviously, he knows the township politics. He used to serve here in the committee and in the Senate as well. He does navigate those waters pretty skillfully.
So he's safe. As long as he wants to stay in the Senate, I think he's safe.
I cannot think of a potential challenger to him that would bring. I mean, he's got the Lakewood vote, and that itself is, pretty strong right now and growing every single year. Over 56,000 voters in Lakewood right now.
It's the lion's share of that district. Sorry to
exactly.
Yeah.
So let's talk about, where we've been headed all this time, which is, what does this mean for 2025? And I don't think anybody can do an honest assessment of what does George Gilmore's election mean, other than to say that Jack Citarelli was a big loser in this. That Citarelli had gambled on Mastronardi, that line would have been Citarelli's in 25, and now it's not. And Ocean is objectively the premier Republican organization in the state. So Micah, what does this mean for the governor's race, where where you had a county that was for Citarelli? It doesn't mean that Citarelli can't win a convention on his own. It doesn't mean that Citarelli can't mount his own off the line bid and have running mates for the assembly or for county commissioner. But it certainly it's got to breathe some life into other candidates. Doug Steinhardt, Michael Testa, some others that might be in this.
Well, we've talked about this. When you looked at the numbers, David, 10,000 votes conservatively in a primary. Is that in the statewide primary? Yeah.
So Citarelli won 60% of the vote with the Ocean County line last year. He won it by 10,154 votes. 4 years earlier, when Kim Guadagno had the line, she won 60%, and it was a crowded field, so it was a 60-20 race. She won it by over 12,000.
There you go.
Christie against Lonigan. This was one of Lonigan's better counties. Christie won 59% of the vote, and took Ocean County by about 7,300. And then you go back. I promise you, I won't go any further back than 2005. But that was just the weird year. A guy named John Murphy, who was a Morris County freeholder, right. He won the screening committee vote, and then Bob Schroeder, who had not even been to the state assembly yet, or had his own legal problems, but he was a township committeeman in Washington Township, Bergen County. Took a lot of Ocean County politicians to the Super Bowl, and he won the line. And then in the primary, Doug Forrester beat Brett Schundler 37-27, and Schroeder, who had the line, got 12% of the vote. And and John Murphy, who won the screening committee, got 6% of the vote. So, there's some history here, but it sort of breaks out to the Ocean County line can get you about 60% of the vote.
And it's as close to a kingmaker of an organization as we have in the Republican Party in New Jersey. And that means that the new chair is as close to a kingmaker
Sure.
as we have in the Republican primary in New Jersey. And so, so I think at a minimum, what it means is that it's up for grabs. I mean, at a minimum, it doesn't mean that Jack Citarelli can't compete for it. It doesn't mean that he can't screen for it, but it's not his. It's not locked down, certainly by any means. It's anybody's game. And again, we go back to those renegades, those anti-establishment types, the crispy types who were going to come back at Chris Smith again, right? That's a different race, different deal. But they're going to be looking to this organization to say, some of these anti-establishment types running for governor, we want to make a play, whether it's Spadea or whomever it is. I don't know if it's Rizzo again, who Gilmore supported this time, but I think it's wide open.
And Chris Smith, I mean, I've been watching him since his first run when he was 25 years old. So that was 1978. Every 2 years, they underestimate his ability to win an election. And I don't know, Shlomo, does Chris Smith need to watch his back?
Hard to imagine. I mean, he's such a figure, also, like, say, almost more than Singer in the district. I mean, he's represented multiple, he's had redistricting again. He moved back in. He's in Manchester now. He's basically local in terms of Lakewood, and with Lakewood just growing, and he gets, he outperformed Trump in 2020 in a presidential year by a couple points. I mean, I think that's demonstrative of his support here. The turnout was pretty bad this past election, but I think if he needed, he could turn that out in droves. Not to say what's going to happen in the rest of the district, but Lakewood is a crucial part of the district.
He was a beneficiary of these county commissioner, these county committee seat races. You talk about turnout being bad. I mean, a lot of this turnout came from the ground up, right? Came from those races that they knew they were going to have to win this county chair race. So I think he was a beneficiary of that turnout.
And I'm not saying Smith doesn't have a little bit of work to do, but that's been his life. I don't know that he minds the work, and I don't know that he necessarily has ever had anything but a good relationship with George Gilmore. Time will tell, and we'll see where that goes. But
that's where I think those expectations may be, bigger than what is actually going to be. I think that's where George is going to have to temper that to some extent.
Sure. Shlomo, go back to 2025. What's this going to mean in Ocean County in terms of early commitments? Are people going to be less likely in 2022 and 23 and 24 to commit to Citarelli or somebody else before the process plays out?
I think at a minimum, for sure. I mean, Citarelli, we know already a couple of days after the election, there is a concession. He said he wants to run again. Laying Demarco pretty early for a race. You can't get much earlier than that. But he's listen, and he knows better than anyone. You don't win the state without driving up huge numbers in Ocean County. He won just now. Citarelli beat Murphy by over 70,000 votes, I think, if I recall correctly. You're going to need that, but that's in the general. But in the primary, you're gonna want to get those commitments, and you're not going to want to fracture base of support going into that. And I think people are probably at a minimum going to be holding back their support, till things start shaping up a little bit. Yeah, but we're way early for that, obviously. But yeah, it's definitely be curious to watch and see how that develops in the next couple of years.
Who are you hearing that could be George Gilmore's candidate? I
didn't hear many names, to be honest. I feel like it's so early, and yeah, it's the same names really at this point that are being recycled, Rizzo's, et cetera. But it's more like, we're just going to be keeping our options open.
Yeah, I think. By the way, I think Phil Rizzo, after his congressional race, I don't. We're not going to see him running for governor, at least not credibly. Hirsch Singh is focused on his race for
Atlantic City, yeah.
a condo board seat in Atlantic City. So but he could run conceivably 3 more times before he has to make that decision. I mean, we'll have a lot of time to talk about governor's races, but I think Doug Steinhardt's in a much stronger position. I think he is more likely to have gotten Gilmore's support the last time, and it would have made that Ocean Convention very interesting, especially now that you see what Gilmore's strength was. We can't go back in time and say, well, what if Gilmore had endorsed somebody else? Because by then there really wasn't, it wasn't the same situation as it is now. But Steinhardt or Mike Testa, who is from South Jersey and I think has a good relationship with the Ocean delegation. I've got to think that those two will be in the mix. And I mean, look, the bottom line is you can't afford, now that Gilmore is chairman again, you can't afford to win the battle and lose the war and be a nominee for governor and have gone so scorched earth that Gilmore doesn't want to help you in a general election. I mean, this is just a massive Republican county. And I was thinking about it, today, the last time Democrats carried countywide races in Ocean was 1989. And since the last time Democrats won in Ocean County, I mean, Democrats have subsequently won in Warren, they've won in Sussex, they've won in Cape May. So the Ocean is just, Shlomo, you talked about 70,000 vote margin for Citarelli. It was on that margin that he nearly won the governorship. And you can't ever take your eye off the general, I guess.
And the population here in Ocean just continues to grow and explode. I mean, not just Lakewood, but around the county, you're just seeing huge numbers year after year. So if it was big in 2021, it's going to be even bigger in 2025. The good news for Citarelli is going to have a couple of years to work it out with Gilmore and to play with right now and try to figure things out here.
So can Jack Citarelli work it out with George Gilmore?
I definitely think so, because it's probably in the two of their, their interests are aligned here. Maybe not on everything, but perhaps they do work something out here. I think that's what others were telling me, or maybe they were just hoping, but that is what I'm hearing.
The thing that's interesting about Steinhardt and Testa both is that it's not just Gilmore playing the heavy. They would both play very well in Ocean County anyway. They would both be the kind of Republican that Ocean County would get behind anyway. More dyed in the wool, right? And so I don't discount Jack's ability to work it out, but I certainly think that they now have an opening and they now have their chance, and stronger than they would have under any other circumstance.
Yeah. And look, there's so much that can happen between now and the Ocean County Screening Committee in 2025. And we don't know what the legislature is going to look like. We don't know if it's, we don't know who's going to be in the White House in January 2025. And that makes an enormous difference.
Yep.
On local politics. We don't know, that would be the Phil Murphy's 8th year, and we don't know what his position will be like. So it's I mean, we're never going to stop talking about years in advance, because it's what people like us do, and we're now 56 minutes into this conversation. If there's people that are still listening to us, they are just as much political junkies as the three of us are. So it's never too early to talk about 25, but just to wrap it up, I think what we really want to see is how quickly George Gilmore moves to take the kind of firm control that he had for his first 23 years, and what he does with the Board of Commissioners, what he does with the legislative delegation, who winds up where, and how he plays out this general.
Yeah, I think it will only take a few shots across the bow to get Ocean County to fall in line. That's what I see.
Yeah. So Shlomo, you are the local guy in Ocean County. You're reporting political news there every day. And by the way, if I haven't said it already, I mean, what you do is just incredibly important, because there is nobody else who's a focused political reporter in Ocean County. And the days of these big newspapers having news bureaus, and I mean, we've joked about how old Micah and I are, and I'm much older than Micah, but we remember the Ocean County Observer as a daily newspaper that doesn't even exist anymore, and that's within the last 20 years. So what you do is incredibly important.
We rely on you, and that it's not even just politics. The wildfire recently. I mean, you are on top of it, and on a daily basis, you tell us.
Appreciate that from both of you. Listen, try. There's many people around the state that do good work, and I can follow their lead. You two leading the way, but there's so many reporters who do hard work across the state, and they give a good example. So there's definitely a lot happening here. I wish there were more reporters covering here, but yeah, that's how it is in the current climate with the budget cuts.
Yeah. So I thank you both, Shlomo Schorr of the Lakewood Shopper and other publications from time to time that you participate with. Micah Rasmussen, the director of the Rebovich Institute, New Jersey Politics at Rider University. This was as always fun. I think we could have done another hour and a half, easy, just talking about Ocean County. But even some of the junkies out there have a line where they just don't want to go. So thank you very much, and thank you everybody who has watched this or who will. It's one of the great things about the media now is you don't have to watch in real time. You could do this at your own convenience. And again, like I said earlier, big moment in New Jersey, seismic shift in power. And I'm glad we had a chance to talk about it. So thank you all very much.
Thank you for having me. It was an honor and a privilege.
Always a pleasure. Always a pleasure.